We all know people in the world who carry baggage. Those folks say, poor me. Well, instead of talking about baggage, I want to talk about a treasure chest. The only difference between baggage and a treasure chest is in the content. I have chosen to take my experiences, my journey, and put it in my treasure chest. And hence, I have 3 advantages. Advantage number 1, I was born black in apartheid South Africa, a country which said based on the color of my skin, what hospital I could be born in, what school I could attend, what neighborhood I could live in. Apartheid was a harsh period in the history of South Africa. Advantage number 2, I was born in a working class family. My father, a former commercial diver turned alcoholic, and sadly became a laborer in a factory, barely earning much. My mother was a school teacher, and we know our school teachers do not earn much. Our household was on the border of poverty. Advantage number 3, you see I can walk today, but I was only born with 1 complete hip socket in the left hip. By the age of 5, I underwent 3 major surgeries. That last surgery left me in a body cast from my ankle to my chest. And by the way, our hospitals were segregated. Now, my mother would not allow me to feel sorry for myself. Let me tell you a little bit about my mom. My mother went to university, the University of Cape Town, in an era when very few women went to high school or to college. And there, at the University of Cape Town, she won a scholarship to the University of Syracuse, New York. And she went from South Africa via steamship to the United States in 1946. She graduated from the University of Syracuse with a master's degree. And she was offered many opportunities to teach in the United States, but she turned them down to return to South Africa. And in South Africa, she spent some time in universities and higher education. But my mother believed that all South Africans, irrespective of race, color, creed, or sex, were entitled to an education. This made my mother a subversive by the South African government. And she was reduced to being a biology teacher at a high school. This is where the government thought they would silence my mother. But my mother is not somebody who could be silenced. She went to her alma mater, Livingston High School, which became my high school too. And she taught all students, brilliant students, all kinds. Now, I'd missed some of my schooling because of my physical therapy and recoveries from these surgeries, so my mom tutored me. But she was tutoring all these other students, and many of these students were brilliant. And then, at a certain time of the year, the university would offer slots, and there would only be so many slots allocated to students of color for the medical school. So she would go and fight with the medical school to obtain more slots for our community. And after winning those slots, she would then go to the business community to raise scholarship money because our communities were impoverished. This was something that went on year after year after year, as long as I can remember, and my mother for most of her teaching career. I ended up becoming an international sportsman. I ended up flying home to see mom after an absence of a few years, and something was different about her. My mother had no breasts. My mother had been diagnosed with breast cancer and had gone through a double mastectomy. And I said, Mom, who was there for you as I was not? And she started to rattle off the names of students, many that I knew. These were her medical professionals who had helped her through her medical challenges. They provided the best medical care that no amount of money could ever buy because they were saving the life of their teacher. At age 87, my mother was awarded an honorary doctorate from the University of Cape Town for her contribution to education in South Africa. There are many doctors and medical professionals and scientists who owe their beginnings to this humble little woman and this humble little high school that I went to. My mother passed recently at age 90, just shy of her 90th birthday. But my mother left behind a powerful message. She taught me, if you could ask 3 things of yourself, life would be with less struggle. She showed me an example of what it was to be a part of a community, to be able to look into the future, to support people. And those 3 questions, what I do, is it right for me? Every one of us here can justify it, including a drug dealer. Our second question is, What I do, is it right for my family? And again, a drug dealer can say, look at the nice house, look at the nice cars, or the nice schools my kids go to. And most people stop at that second question. But that third question is, what I do, is it right for my community? Now a drug dealer is in trouble. My mother was a part of the community. She did not become a teacher because someday she was going to need these students to help her. She became a teacher because she believed in elevating our community, supporting our community, encouraging our community through our youth. She just happened to become a recipient of her investment in our community. 8 years ago, I added a fourth question. We will talk about that in a while. Now, I'd missed some of my schooling, but I became an avid reader. And I read all kinds of books. And my father had taught me to snorkel, and the only time I knew my father sober was the time we were diving. But the books I was interested in were not in the libraries I was supposed to go to. Our libraries were segregated. So one day I found the courage to hobble over to the whites-only library because the books I was interested in was on the sea. And one day I came across a book that would change my life forever. Joshua Slocum, Sailing Alone Around the World. This was a story of a man who circumnavigated our planet on a sailboat. And when I read this book, I knew I wanted to be a sailor. I wanted to own a yacht. I wanted to sail around the world and see this place called Cape Horn. A huge dream was born. Nobody in my community had gone and been a sailor before. We did not own yachts. But with courage, I went to the local yacht club, and I went from boat to boat to boat and asked people to take me sailing. And I got rejection after rejection after rejection. But I never gave up until finally somebody said yes. I got out there, and guess what? I got seasick. But I had found a new passion. I'd found a dream, something that had made my life worth living. And I committed to my school friends, and I said, one day, I am going to own a yacht. And what do you think they did? They laughed. They said, you'll never have a boat. But I would not give up on the dream. So I got myself a symbol. I got myself a red jacket, a red sailing jacket, and I hung it where I could see it. And I said, someday, when I own a yacht, I will wear this jacket as a symbol of my success. Till that day, I will know what my sacrifices are all about. My parents could not give me allowances for a train fare or yacht club dues. I had to earn my own way. I had learned to snorkel. I dived in the yacht club. I saved my money. I invested my money. But I knew I needed a career that would support this jacket. Wealthy yachtsmen, they have money. I had a dream. And so in the libraries, our segregated libraries, I came across an article in a magazine about commercial divers. And I knew that that is what I wanted to do for a career. But it was a world with a lot of risk. And I thought I could mitigate that risk by going to the best diving school. Further on research in our libraries, that school was in Los Angeles, California. With a lot of help, with the money I was saving, with the money my parents could raise from their retirement and our house, I was able to attend school in the United States. I then got jobs working in oil platforms, and I mined diamonds on the ocean floor, saving my money because I wanted to wear that jacket. But when I did the mathematics, the cost of the yacht divided by my savings wasn't quite adding up. So I went back to public libraries, and I found books on naval architecture, how to build a boat, and the design stuff behind it. And eventually I began the journey of building my boat. With the help of many folks, we were able to build this yacht. And when I ended up launching this boat, and we were able to sort of step on board, finally the time had come when I could put on my red sailing jacket and be a proud owner. Now, my boat lacked many things, and the South African media nicknamed my boat the floating coffin. I lacked so much, they said I'd kill myself in this thing. Now, I dreamt of entering the solo race from England to America, the O-Star yacht race. And I needed sponsorship. But with the boat being called the floating coffin, that was not possible. Now, I could not afford to buy GPS or satellite navigation. And the last of my pennies, I bought some ancient technology and bid my family goodbye. I bought a sextant, 500 years old technology, and I bought a book, Celestial Navigation for Yachtsmen, and I set sail. Now, don't ask me where I was for the first 7 to 10 days. I was lost. I was busy reading this book, trying to figure out how to use this device. But life isn't always fair. I was challenged on the high seas. I got hit on the forehead by the boom and split open my eyebrow, and did not have the medical kit or the money to buy a distress beacon. I was 800 miles from the nearest doctor in Ireland. All I thought I had on board my boat was a rusty sailing needle and sailing twine. Could you stitch your forehead back together with this? Nope, nor could I. So I had a huge barrier. But I remembered in science that if you apply pressure to the wound and if you can hold it together, it'll go back together and coagulate. And with that, I came up with my solution. A clothes peg. Yes, I went and saw the doctor. The doctor said, son, your wound is fine, but you are crazy. You need psychiatric help. I entered my transatlantic race. I finished it in the floating coffin. But I didn't just sit back and say, I'm a sailor, I own a yacht, and now I finished this race. I dreamt bigger. I wanted to race solo around our planet. 27,000 miles. Unable to find sponsorship, I was in trouble. With less than a year to go to the start of the race. I'm frustrated. How do I get there? Well, the minimum size requirement for the race was 40 foot. My yacht was 38 foot. How big is my problem? Just 2 feet. So I rushed out. I got plywood, fiberglass mat, epoxy resin. We stretched the back of our boat. We renamed my boat. And I showed up in the world's greatest yacht race in my new 40-footer. Truly, where there's a will, there's a way. I ended up racing against my hero and many other great sailors. But sadly, on the second leg deep in the Southern Ocean, the Southern Indian Ocean, my boat was capsized. And I was out of the race. My mast was broken. This race was so tough. When I limped back to Africa and told my floating coffin almost killed me, my hero, Harry Mitchell, did perish in the race. I could not just sit around and do nothing. So I decided to enter the O-Star race from England to America for a second time, that solo race. During that race, very quick into it, I encountered major fog. And midway across the Atlantic Ocean, I got hit by a Russian freighter. And my boat had a huge hole in it. It was sinking. US coasters had abandoned the boat. But that boat was my home and everything I had. So instead, I got a huge pump. And I spent 15 minutes every hour, 24 times a day, pumping for 15 days to keep my boat afloat. I finished third in my class. I truly had incentive. I found the money for some sponsorship to replace and repair my vessel. And I entered the 27,000-mile race in 1998, 1999 for a second time. I encountered calms. I encountered equipment failure. I encountered major storms. Before Cape Horn, a life-threatening storm came into the region. My boat was surfing off these waves with no sails and being turned upside down, called a knockdown. And I thought I was going to die. This race was tough. At the end of that leg, my girlfriend, who I'd been with for 8 years, Gwen, she ended up leaving our relationships. She could not handle the stress of my absence, the uncertainty and the phone calls that I was in trouble. This race took so much, but yet I persevered. And eventually, I crossed the finish line. I had raced 27,000 miles around our planet. 9 months at sea from leaving Charleston, South Carolina, to returning to Charleston, South Carolina on the 4 legs. I'd spent 195 days at sea collectively alone. More people. Think of the billions of people on this planet. The billions. Less than 300 of us have sailed or raced solo around the world via the Southern Ocean and Cape Horn. I did it in a boat some called the Floating Coffin and survived. I ended up moving into a cottage and I was working on my autobiography, Journey of a Hope Merchant, which won the National Outdoor Book Award, and dating, only to come home to discover my cottage had burnt down. And I lost everything. I lost my trophies, I lost my photographs, I lost my memoirs, the original manuscript. Everything was gone. But yet, I had faith. I had faith that I could survive that. And soon after the fire, a few days later, a stranger called and asked what could she do to help. We ended up meeting, and 5 months after the fire, I ended up meeting my wife. If it was not for the fire, darling, I would never have met. I gained so much more than what I'd lost. And we've ended up traveling the world. We've been all over, not just as a speaker, as an author, but working with organizations, working in schools. I spent time in prisons, visiting prisons and talking about them being entrepreneurs with the wrong product. And 8 years ago, my son, my stepson, and his wife gave birth to a little girl. And I held this little girl, Shelby, in my arms. And having worked over in the prisons and having looked at the future, I started thinking, what is her future? And then I realized, I've asked 3 powerful questions of myself, but there's a 4th. What I do, is it right for me? Yes. What I do, is it right for my family? Yes. What I do, is it right for my community? Yes. But what we do, is it right for the next generation? We truly have to think generationally. I have my next generation now on my boat. My wife and I are sailing on board a beautiful 50-foot catamaran in the Caribbean. And we've embarking on another voyage around the world. We have homes in different parts of the world, but we're choosing to be on our boat and with our granddaughter and our daughter-in-law. Shelby, I want her to see the world from a broader perspective, to appreciate the environment, to appreciate different cultures, and to learn to live in the world and not off the world. I have a message to our leaders. I want to challenge you. Turn off your television sets. Stop watching reality TV and become the reality of the journey. This is your journey. This is your and our planet. We truly can make a difference. If we think in terms of generations, if we think in terms of our community, what an amazing world we can have. And we get to choose whether we carry baggage or instead we have chosen to have our treasure chest. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.